3 hours. And when I started noticing, I'm like, gosh, this guy's always commuting. 15 hours a week he's on the road. And he's an executive too, where he's at Edwards Air Force Base. So when I saw him, he was drained. He's like sleep with his eyes open, like he had that talent type of deal, right? So he made tons of money, does very well, lives on top of Day Creek, does very well financially, but he never had the time to really be able to enjoy what he was working for. Does that kind of make sense? So me growing up, I'm kind of trying to give you a picture of where I come from. When me growing up, I'm seeing two different sides of a story. Okay, I see one parent, again, that does very well on the finances side, which was my dad, but never had time to do anything else. So he made a lot of money, had no time. Other parent had all the time in the world. Take me to practices, me and my sister, do whatever we need to do, but really didn't have that much money to do the things in that time. All right, so what I started noticing, people either have a lot of time, no money, or no money, no time. Are you guys notice that too? And I always challenge this. I'm against the kind of grain type of guy. I say, why can't we just have both? Right? Like, why can't we have the best of both worlds? So for myself, what I decided to do is I started looking at, I was watching TV when I was younger, and I was like, I would see like Michael Jordan and all these different individuals, and I would see all the money they would make for shooting this orange ball, right, and putting it in a round hoop. I was like, man, that's kind of crazy. Like, you make $1 million by doing that? I want to do that too, right? And so what I started doing, so I started playing basketball, became an All-American. I ended up going to a school called the University of Utah. Is anybody familiar where that's at? It's in Utah, if you don't know, all right? And went there, and they told me I was good enough to go to the NBA. Okay, that's what they said. They said, you're good enough to go. I said, great. You know, and the only reason it really drove me because I saw the contracts they make. Again, if I put $1 million in your account right now, how would your life change for you? Drastically, wouldn't it? Right? That's not a big deal to them, right? Because of what they were able to create in that profession. So for me, I wanted to create that income to be able to save my mom's time back and give her a quality of life and help my dad get all his time back as well. Does that kind of make sense? So what happened was right before I got drafted, it's very competitive. Again, everyone's fighting because those contracts are very high. What happened is I tore my labrum with my hip right before I got drafted. Okay, so like a publicly traded company, something can happen to your stock and fall drastically. All right. And so what I did is I went overseas in Puerto Rico, I went overseas in Australia, but I wasn't planning on going overseas to play basketball. I wanted to play in the States. So for me, I had to make a decision on what I want to do in my life. Is anybody else in transition right now, kind of transitioning, like what do you want to do in the next season of your life? That's where I was. And I remember having a conversation with my alumni at University of Utah, and my alumni would always show up to our games. They would show up in their games in Bentleys and Rolls Royces and limos, and I would look at them and I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. Like, what do you guys do? And they owned a lot of JW Marriotts. Is anybody familiar with the hotel brand Marriott? Okay. So when you have Hotel Marriott, then you have JW. That's a whole different conversation. JW is a 7-star resort. So they would show up to my games. I don't know if you guys understand what of a student athlete, like their life was, at least when I played. Like, it was literally, they give us $900 stipend, okay? And we're eating sausages, top ramen, butter with a lot of toast on it, 2 glasses of water. That's your 5-course meal, right? But they're making billions of dollars off of us. Me playing a game, they'll have jerseys over it, last name, all that. Let's call it that. University's making billions of dollars for paying us $900. Come on. Kind of crazy when you really think about it, right? And so, but for me, I'm not a salesy type of guy. I would see them come to our games, and I'll go like this. I'll come up to you. I'll say, hey, Jill, how are you? All right? I know you're coming to the game to come watch, but I understand you're very successful in what you do. Do you mind if I ask, like, if I was like your kid, like, what would you teach me? And they look at me kind of crazy, right? And so they're like, wait, what do you mean? And I'll say, let me repeat it again. I'm going to school for business entrepreneurship right now. I understand my curriculum that's being taught. In about 6 months, it's going to be outdated. And they will never teach me what you know. So could you like teach me if I was like your kid? I know I don't look like you, but if I was your kid, if you adopted me, what would you teach me? Just principles. What would you teach me? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I would say to him. Does that make sense in my games? And then he will respond back and he'll say, well, if I tell you, you better do them. I said, well, of course, you have the lifestyle. I don't. I'm over here broke, trying to aspirations to go into the NBA. And obviously you do very well. So these are 3 principles he told me, and I'll tell you them as well. It's helped my life tremendously. It helps my family's life tremendously as well. And I'll kind of get more into the story. These are 3 things. First thing he told me is never work for money. That's what he told me. And it kind of challenged my thinking at this point because our whole life we're told to work for money, right? Everything we do, we work for money. Anything and everything. So he says, anything that you chase will run from you. A lot of people take notes on this one. Okay? Anything you chase will run from you. So stop chasing money if you want it. I say, interesting. He says, if you want to be in a great position, only work for equity and knowledge. That is it. I said, huh, pretty interesting. Okay? So that's the first principle he gave me. Second principle he gave me is residual income. Okay? He said, stop working for one-time deals. I said, what do you mean? And he gave me analogies. Anybody else visual in here? I'm a visual guy. All right? So he gave me an analogy. This is what he said. He said, this is your income. This is your work ethic. Income, work ethic. He says, how would you like your work ethic to be the same? Obviously getting better every year. But your income keeps going like this every year. Of course. Everyone wants that game, right? He says that's what residual income is. You need to be able to position yourself to always have residual income so it goes on autopilot for yourself in regards to your work ethic. Okay? And the last principle he gave me was that you better be able to innovate and create things. Because if you can't innovate and create things, you will be replaced. At one point in time, it will be replaced by people. At one point in time, let's say that is Jill, right? Say Jill's the employer. And what's your name, sir? Jose. Say me and Jose right now, we're competing, right? Why? Because she's offered a position of a job. Like we both of us need a job because we need to feed our families. She offers a position. So what do? We get a resume. We both lie on it. Don't we all lie on our resumes, right? We lie on it, talk about all the things we supposedly have done, right? And we make it sound all nice, and we come and sell ourselves to her. Why? Because we need a position, don't we? That's what we do, right? Today is no longer like that. You know that, right? You know you're being replaced we're not competing anymore. You're competing with this. You compete with innovation. Even though the lady I was introducing today, she gave you nothing but innovation talk. How Uber is transferred, how Amazon is changing things, how Apple is changing, like all innovation, innovation, innovation. You're one innovation away from being replaced forever. And for example, I just came out the country. We're just in Jamaica, and we came back in, and at one point in time, there would be a security guard or police officer that would take a stamp and stamp your passport. Anybody come out the country lately? Okay? And that's exactly what they would do. You know they were being replaced, right? And that person, by the way, makes 60 grand a year, and that's their career. There's no longer like that. My kids call it getting your passport tattoo. Kind of crazy generation today, right? That's what they say. That's what they go, Daddy, I need to get my a new tattoo. I'm like, no, you're not getting no tattoo. No, in my passport, Daddy, in my passport, right? Like, oh, okay, all right. A little weird. So anyways, so I would come in, and at one point in time, we'll be that person. No longer is that person. It's a machine now. You guys see that, right? It's a machine. That machine's kind of small. I'm tall, so I have to kind of squat down and takes pictures of you. But that machine only costs $2,500. Did you hear what I just said? That machine to make it only costs $2,500. But it just replaced someone to make 60 grand a year. So as a business owner, doesn't it make sense to do that? So now that career is obsolete. All replaced. And maybe that doesn't hit you. Let's go to restaurants. Anybody been to a restaurant lately? Go to Applebee's. All servers in the next 5 to 10 years are all going to be obsolete. Because they're all being replaced by these little iPads that my kids love too, on the desk that check out now. Isn't that kind of crazy? Are you guys seeing what's going on today? Yeah, McDonald's even do it. They said we're tired of workers' comp and all that. We'll replace all machines too. Everything's going to be checkout. So those are the 3 things he told me 11 years ago. He says you better make sure that you have equity, you better have knowledge, you better make sure you work with residual income, and you better be in a position to innovate and create or you're going to be replaced. And I said, interesting. So what industry do I need to step into, sir? And he says, well, if I were you and I had to do it all over again, I would do insurance. And I start laughing at him. Okay? And why would I laugh at him? Because at this point in time, there was this State Farm campaign with Jake. You guys remember Jake? You guys see the commercial with Jake with State Farm, like the red polo and the khakis and call spouses late at night? No, I'm the only one that saw that. You're the only one that saw that too? Okay, cool, baby. It's okay to talk to me, right? And Jake from State Farm, right? I was like, yeah. And when he said it to me, that's the first person that popped in my head. I was like, I ain't Jake. like I play basketball. I'm not looking to be no Jake, right? And he looked at me kind of crazy. And he says, you don't want to be a part of the biggest industry in the world simply because of a commercial and a stereotype? And that kind of like messed up my thinking a little bit, right? And he really started breaking down the insurance industry and what's really going on to it. And I believe, from my understanding, what I started doing is I changed my perspective that day. After I got done playing, I worked for a firm out in Orange County, became one of the youngest brokers out there, did very well. But guess what? Don't you think I would follow every rule he told me to follow? Like, this guy's wealthy, like major wealthy. He owns 7-star resorts. Don't you think I would listen? Like, he told me all the principles to do what he needs to do. I would listen, right? No, I didn't listen. I didn't do anything he told me to do. He said, what? Don't work for what? Money. What did I start doing? I started working for money. I worked in Orange County. I started working for money, right? I'm in Orange County. I do very well, right? I was always working for salaries. Secondly, he said, you better have residual income. I didn't have no residual income. I was making the company so much money for my work. And then lastly, I would recommend things to innovate and change, and they wouldn't listen to me because I didn't own any of it. So why would they, right? So unfortunately, I violated every rule he told me. So then therefore, what happened was I ended up calling him 3 years later and saying, hey, what should I do next? And he goes, so clearly you didn't follow my rules. All right? I said, I didn't, unfortunately. He says, no worries. All right? He says, go to this network event. I ended up going to the network event, guys. I ended up meeting that guy. I don't know if you guys saw him previously. His name is Dr. Lynn Cooper. Okay? And he was one of the youngest principals in the San Bernardino Unified School District. Met him, took a liking to him. He started talking about this company here. And everything they talked about was aligned with what that guy told me to do, which was my mentor. He says, hey, we're a company that wants to disrupt the industry, that wants to change everything, innovate it. I said, innovation? That's kind of interesting. He says, we believe in true entrepreneurship. That means that everything that you work for, you should own. True equity. Okay. And he says, we believe you should have residual income where your passive income should surpass anything you ever worked for. Interesting. I said, okay, I'm interested.